Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the lunch table. As is me, Ben, and my co-host Alan. Alan, how you doing today?
I'm doing great today, Ben. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. It was a very, very eventful weekend and actually week in the whole sports universe. We had a lot of some trades and signings going on in MLB, and obviously, probably the one thing that we're going to be talking about the most, the NFL and the college football championship game, NFL playoffs, I mean, and the college football championship game because wow, it was definitely a weekend. So we're just gonna jump right into it. I think we got to jump off obviously with our favorite teams, the Washington football team versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Alan, what'd you think?
This game was it was like I think it was probably the best game all season since the Dallas stomping, but just for the most surprising way, it's like our quarterback was the only person on the team that didn't let us down. It was very surprising. It's usually the other way around. I don't know how this dude was in college 2 months ago. I don't know why he wasn't starting here.
Yeah, yeah. I go. Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, it's crazy how you're studying, and now you're playing at the college playoffs, and not college. I mean, sorry, NFL playoffs, and you're making a huge push. But yeah, go ahead, Alan. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So it was just surprising how well he played. I think for the most part, he outdueled Tom Brady. It's just our offense is bad. He was basically, I don't know. I don't want to say he was better than Tom Brady because Tom Brady still did excellent. But man, Tampa's Bay offensive line did not allow our defense line to do anything. And they're our usual strength. And Deron Payne was the only person who did anything. Jonathan Allen was pretty good, but was just always a step away, and Tom Brady threw it away, which I think that's just Tom Brady being the elite quarterback he is, prevented our defense from doing much, which was, who do we play? It was like Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow. I didn't hear Montez Sweat. Oh, he had the one sack.
Yeah, he had the sack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he had the one sack as Tom Brady tried to step up and clearly was not faster than Montez Sweat because Tom Brady's getting up there in age a little bit.
Yeah. Well, in my opinion, I think it was definitely a great game to watch. I mean, it was intense, rush of emotions, but definitely probably one of the best games I've ever watched, especially this year and in recent years for Washington. I personally think, I mean, I was texting you this, Alan, and one of our other friends, but I think our defense kind of and our offense kind of exploited Tampa Bay's weaknesses because obviously Heineke had what, 70 yards on the ground or something like that. I mean, he was able to dodge incoming defensive linemen left and right. I mean, it was just amazing to watch. It almost kind of reminded me of a little bit of an RG3 kind of factor, which is nice because I mean,
I wouldn't go that far. RG3's rookie season is the best quarterback I've ever seen play for Washington still. Okay.
That's no, I meant it's
his escape though, I think was probably the best play I've seen from a quarterback in at least 8 years. That escape from the pocket.
Yeah, but I was trying. Oh, that was amazing. I was trying to say how it's nice that we haven't had a quarterback that was able to do that since RG3 in his rookie season.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because obviously when RG3 once he came back, I think he was a little bit scared to get tackled again. Kirk Cousins can barely even do the dang gritty. So how does he? He can't really even run that much either. And obviously, Alex Smith, his mobility is kind of limited as well. So, I mean, I think definitely this offseason, I think Ron Rivera has a tricky spot of, do we keep Heineke? Do we, get another quarterback to maybe compete with Heineke? Or do we keep Alex Smith to compete
Trey
with
Lance.
Trey Lance?
Right,
okay. Well, okay. But yeah, so I think it's definitely, we also need to address the wide receiving core as well, because I think we need one more big wide receiver in order to, help out, McLaurin, and whoever our quarterback is going to be in the near future. But, it's a great game to watch. Props to Tampa Bay. I mean, I was telling my dad this when I was watching. I was like, look, if we lose, before the game, if we lose, I'm still happy with our team because we made a huge improvement, especially from last year. But that's pretty much all I have to say about the Washington versus Tampa game, Alan.
Yeah, I would go with you. Had no expectations walking to this game. I'm like, we won 3 games last year, and we're now in the playoffs. Like, this wasn't even supposed to happen year one. I'm preparing for us to be like playoff contenders, maybe like 2 to 3 years from now. So I think this entire game was just icing on the top. But let's move on to our next game with Baltimore versus Tennessee. And Ben, do you have any thoughts about the game?
It was a really good game, as well as the Washington versus Tampa game. I mean, props to Lamar Jackson. You know, he was able to get his first win in the playoffs. Definitely, I think if he were to lose that game or lose this past game, I think he would have had that over his head probably for the rest of his career, kind of a thing. But he got his first win. He was actually throwing the ball pretty well. I mean, yeah, he had that one interception at the beginning of the game, but I mean, props to the Baltimore defense because they stopped Derrick Henry. Like I think Derrick Henry's like largest run gain was like 8 yards. And to all
Yeah.
the viewers that don't really know about Derrick Henry, put it this way, he was able to run 2,000 yards on the ground this past regular season. Man's a beast. And the fact that they were able to stop him and they learned from, the recent game in the regular season and the playoffs last year, I gotta give Baltimore props for that.
Yeah, that was insane. Like, I think they kept Henry to averaging, I want to say, like less than 4 yards a carry, which is hard. That dude, if you give him like an ounce of freedom, he's gonna take that to the house. And I was able to watch some of like the third and fourth quarter because I was a little bit busy, but it was just like they kept on talking about we expect Henry to burst off a huge run, and it just like never came. They kept
Yeah, I
on
think
handing him the ball. Just
yeah, and I don't think Ryan Tannehill, I mean, he did pretty good at quarterback. I mean, he obviously he had that one throw that was an interception that was able to end the game. And Baltimore was able to dance on their logo and then run away after the game because they did not want to shake their hands, which is understandable because if you go back to the regular season, the Titans did the exact same thing. But you know what? It's playoff football, and I don't think anybody really cares at when it comes to winning the Lombardi. But yeah, it was definitely a good game. Props to Baltimore's defense and Tennessee. Well, you had a Cinderella story last year, but your Cinderella story obviously didn't come up this year. But we're gonna move on to the next game, which was the Bills versus the Colts, which was actually on Saturday. But we're just listing the games, and I mean, it was a really good game. I mean, all of these games are really good, but yeah, the Bills and the Colts. I mean, it was neck and neck to like the very end. Alan.
I didn't get too much. I didn't watch the game, but I checked it on Twitter pretty often. I saw some things. They were like, basically, Josh Allen took over when it was time to win the game, is what I heard. But
Mm-hmm.
I, I personally didn't expect. I knew the Colts could make it a close game, but I didn't expect it to be that close. What are your thoughts from watching the game?
It was a really good game. Again, I didn't really watch the game because I was busy, but I did watch the highlights, and I mean, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs did what they do best, and that is the one punch, two punch kind of ordeal. And I mean, props to, you know, every the Colts defense that really held up, and their offense. Their offense was pretty much in there, but I just think that the Bills just kind of ran away with it. I think they were kind of playing with them a little bit in the first half, and then they decided to let's take this a little bit seriously and let's actually try and win this game. So props to the Bills. They're moving on to the playoffs. First win in 25 years, I believe. So go crazy up there, Bills Mafia, because I know you guys definitely needed that win.
Speaking of teams that were playing with the other team in the first half, let's talk about the Browns Steelers game, where the Browns scored 28 points in the first quarter against the Steelers. One, I believe, is from a bad snap from Marquise Pouncey. Didn't watch the game either because I was busy, but it was embarrassing for the Steelers to just lose the game the way they did. Like the Browns coach was in his own basement because of COVID protocols and couldn't coach. Browns were missing their starting cornerback. Ben, do you want to talk about some of the Steelers receivers' remarks for after the game?
Yeah, I guess they're doing what they do best, and that is trying to troll all the NFL and try and say that they're gonna do this. So obviously Juju Smith-Schuster before the game was saying that they're the same old Browns. They're really I think it was like they don't even have a team name or something like that. And then after the game he was like, well, they're still the Browns are the Browns, and they're gonna lose like the next game. And then I don't know if you saw Allen, but Chase Claypool kind of put on when he was on, if all the lives he had to go on TikTok, and he went on TikTok live and was like, yeah, they won, fair enough, but they're gonna lose next game. They're just salty. They're just salty. They're I think they're a little salty that they didn't win, but I think you really, obviously besides their wide receivers being divas, as Alan likes to put in our notes. I mean, I think for the Steelers, they definitely have to. Is this Ben Roethlisberger's last year? I
Should
think it's
be.
one more year on his contract, but I mean, he could definitely retire, and then, that would also in the offseason be another starting point or another, you know, impact for the quarterback situation that the offseason will have, which could be crazy. And, well, the Steelers lost and the Browns won, so props to the Browns, props to
I just
Baker
want to point out one
Mayfield.
thing. I
Go
I
ahead.
looked at the stats at halftime. The Steelers were known for the defense throughout the entirety of like the season. It was like at halftime, I think both Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb were averaging at least 10 yards a carry. I think they both like
Yeah.
averaged 9.5 yards a carry. I'm like, that's
Well, I think,
that's awful.
yeah, I think, but what you also have to look at is I think their D line was pretty messed up because obviously when their linebackers he's out for the rest of the season,
Dupree, yeah.
yeah, Bud Dupree he got injured on the against Washington actually. I think it was some ACL maybe injury. I don't really know off the top of my head, but yeah, I think their defense was just a little bit banged up. Um, and yeah, I think the undefeated record kind of got to their head. And I mean, I personally I don't think the Steelers really have like someone in their locker room to kind of tell some of these, yeah, players control and whatnot, but like, sometimes you got like kind of try and tell them like this, shut up, like come
Yeah, you
on,
got to
this
act
is foot,
professional
like
sometimes.
yeah, like be a like kind of like I guess you could say be a man, just say okay, good game, good luck, and
Yeah.
we'll play you next year. Like you can't just keep on saying oh well the Browns are still the Browns and well watch the Browns if the Browns win the Super Bowl then you guys even look more like an idiot because
Yeah.
then people are just gonna pull that over your head which come on man just be mature
Did you
especially for
hear
Juju
about
Smith.
the Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Just I thought it was something pretty cool. Did you see the guard that happened to play? He came from like a practice squad. He drove like 6 hours to play with the team. Like had
Hmm.
never played with them before and just played like 12 snaps and like shut down like an all pro dude. I thought that's insane to
Yeah,
see.
yeah. I mean, you could say that to Heineke, I guess, the same way. I mean, he was on a practice squad. He was in college, studying what math and economics or something like that, trying to get his degree.
Engineering, I believe.
And I think there was like an interview after he was saying that he has to take a final tomorrow morning or like that next morning. So he was like, I got to go to bed. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But I was just gonna say, with the whole Steelers receivers thing, I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster, it's a free agent year. And if the Steelers don't want him to bring him back because, obviously they released Antonio Brown because he was also being a little bit of a diva, but also that's a whole nother story because that was a battle between him and Ben Roethlisberger. But yeah, I mean the Steelers they really got to think like, hey, do we still want Juju? Because is he still our like number one receiver, or do we want to move on? It should be oh, excuse me. It should be very interesting on what happens this offseason. But seeing how some of the offseason has already kind of shaped forward for some teams that obviously did not make the playoffs, we got to look at there are right now 7 teams that don't have a coach as we're a head coach. The Jaguars, Jets, Eagles, Chargers, Texans, Falcons, and Lions. Now, some of the coaches that were on the team, head coaches, were obviously were fired from their duty midseason, like the Falcons, Lions, Texans, and I think that's it.
Lions. Did
And
you say Lions?
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
and the Jaguars, Jets, and Eagles and Chargers released their head coaches this past week. Obviously, I mean, I'm just gonna say I think the Jaguars are gonna hire Urban Meyer as their head coach. Um, I mean, they've had interviews and there's also reports of him kind of building up a coaching staff already. So, should be definitely something interesting to see in the future. Um, and obviously the Eagles. I mean, Alan has thinks the Eagles went surprising. Go ahead, Alan.
Well, it's just I don't know who you like get for the Eagles. Like the Eagles are probably the second least attractive of all these teams. The Lions look like a garbage fire. Like I don't think anyone's going to go near the Lions. But the Eagles, yeah, I mean, it's hard to have a good team when your franchise quarterback suddenly plays like a practice string quarterback from college. Like it's hard to win
Mm.
when your quarterback's like that. But I just don't know how you. I don't think you get like he won a Super Bowl obviously like 3 years ago. Which I'm not saying you can be a completely bad quarterback. You can be a completely bad coach and win a Super Bowl, and like 2 years later need to get cut. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the only chance for them to really turn it around would have been sticking with their coach because like all of their good players are like on their last legs. They're all pretty old, like on the wrong side of 30. So
Yeah.
that was a questionable cut for me. But Ben, I have a question for you. Which of these teams, which two do you think are the most enticing jobs?
I would say the Chargers and the Falcons. Only because for the Chargers wise, I mean, I kind of don't agree with the Anthony Lynn. That's his name? Yeah. Firing
Yeah.
because if you look at the last, I think like 4 games, I think they won them. Or like last like 4 out of 5 games, which, I mean, I think he finally figured out something. But I mean, I think you also look at Chargers on their defense is still pretty well. I mean, also, obviously, I think they had a pretty significant on the COVID-19 holdouts from the NFL, and injuries was pretty bad in the offseason. But I mean, they got their franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert. Their wide receiving core is very, very well, or is very good. And I think they're just a more well-rounded team. Same thing with the Falcons. I think they should hire I think it's interim head coach. He was doing pretty well towards the end of the season. I mean, I think it's just more of a well-organized teams because, I mean, if you look at the Jaguars, they obviously have a lot of stress on themselves because they had the first overall pick, whether they trade it or they pick probably the most highly talented prospect since Andrew Luck, um, uh, Trevor Lawrence. The Jets, I mean, they're just a whole, you know, a crazy mess that's going on in their head. And I mean, if you look at the Eagles, they basically they have like no cap. They have like no money because they spent all their money on their line and gave money to players that probably shouldn't have needed it. Their GM, in my opinion, I think they should have fired their GM because I've been like listening to some, fans after the firing Doug Pearson. They're kind of like, okay, that's one step if you really want to call that a step. But I guess their GM is terrible because he hasn't been, drafting prospects and getting good prospects that they need. And I mean, you look at the Lions, like you said, it's just craziness, and Texans also craziness because their quarterback could ask to be traded. Who Deshaun Watson is a franchise quarterback and can definitely lead someone to a Super Bowl with the team that could be around him. So that's my opinion. How about you, Alan?
I think the Jags. I don't even think it's like a question they draft Trevor Lawrence. So I think that makes them number one because anyone wants to work with a Trevor Lawrence. I think the Jets are most likely taking a quarterback too. So I would say it's the coaches that come in get to like basically help choose the quarterback they want. The Jets probably have to choose from, not Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and then Justin Fields. So you get to choose. I think the Texans one, I agree with you. I think the Chargers one is pretty enticing because they have their franchise quarterback. They have a good offense. Their defense, I think, has always done much better when hopefully Derwin comes back from his injury. The Texans, sure, they're missing their first and second round picks, but they still have like third through seventh. So it's not like they have it's like not like they don't have any draft picks. It's going to be a lot harder to do well, and that's why it's important to get good coaches to develop. I think the Texans are also like really, really far into the cap, which makes no sense. So they probably got to cut a bunch of people. But
Either
also for
cut
the
or
Jags and
trade.
Jets, yeah, they probably need to sell some of that roster. But also the Jags and Jets have lots of cap room. Um, the Falcons, like if anyone can come in and turn their defense around, I think they're contending for a Super Bowl again because they have Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. They have Russell Gage, I think, their third receiver, who's pretty good. And they
Mm-hmm.
obviously still have Matt Ryan. Their defense just played really bad. Like they were infamous from always losing in close games.
Yeah.
I don't
I
even know
mean,
what to do with the Lions though.
the Lions, they're not. I don't think they're in that much turmoil in like the question. I guess I mean they have a pretty solid team in a way. I guess you could say in the aspect of it's not as bad as like the Eagles in the aspect of where they have no cap space. I mean they can still. I guarantee you, if they were to trade Matthew Stafford, they're gonna get something out of him. Like they're not just gonna give him up for like a bag of chips and a soda. Like they're gonna probably ask for a lot because he is a very talented quarterback. I think just injuries have bounced him back, and he's on the Lions, which does not help. Um,
I don't think he gets as much as like if you were to try to trade for Deshaun Watson. I think Matthew Stafford is well below. Like he can play as an elite quarterback, but he's just not in that tier anymore. Like I think you probably get maybe 1 to 2 first round picks, but the Lions I feel just like lack superstars, especially with the bunch of their receivers up for free agency that they probably won't be able to afford. Number 3 overall pick played awful this season and got injured at like week 11.
yeah,
Hopefully he plays better. Yeah,
Mhm.
Kuda.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think the Jets they have some sort of upcoming in the fact that they have the second overall pick. They are going to get a new head coach. They have a lot of cap space, so they can get players that they need to get. And I want to kind of relate the New York Jets to New York Knicks in this aspect of how, remember, I think it was in 2018 when the Knicks could have signed Kyrie and Katie. Okay, they could have signed them, but instead they went to the Brooklyn Nets, literally right down the street, a next borough in New York City. I mean, could you imagine like a superstar player, like let's say Allen Robinson doesn't go to the Jets but goes to the Giants? Like,
That would be
could you?
questionable.
Yeah, that'd be questionable, but that would be still in the aspect of the Jets need to make a market for themselves. They need to either make trades to free up more cap space or get more draft picks or get some players out of it so they can compete with, because the Dolphins are going to be up there. The Dolphins are going to be a rise in the AFC East. The Bills are already a rise in the AFC East, and don't doubt the Patriots. So the Jets need to do something if they want to compete in a very, very tough situation. But I mean, Alan, you good on this subject?
Um, yeah, you're good. I was looking ahead to some of the other things we're going to talk about. So we're going to go on. So what's going on in sports? Ben, do you have the new MLB news and signings?
Yeah, I actually have this has been a pretty good week for MLB in the wise of a lot of signings and trades have gone down. Obviously, we reported last week that the San Diego Padres got Blake Snell and Yu Darvish, who that's a big acquisition. But actually last night, the Chicago White Sox got a new player in Liam Hendriks, who was voted the #1 reliever in MLB this past season, which, props to him. He definitely deserves it. He signed a 3-year, $54 million contract. So I think it's the South Side's going to be getting, some good players. Um, and yeah, some trades. Obviously, Francisco Lindor going to the Mets. That's a huge trade. So more New Mets fans are kind of going crazy. But still, some of the big free agents are still out there, and for some reason they are not signing, which is kind of crazy. Because going to our next story, Rob Manfred, the commissioner of the MLB, came out to tell MLB owners to be ready for spring training. Spring training is starting as it has been since I don't know how long, but starting as usual. And they are going to play a 162 game season, just like they did last season, which I think can speed up for free agents and also GMs on teams because they need to sign players if they want to get them ready for spring training and going into the season. That's pretty much all in MLB. And yeah, let's go to the big game last night, the NCAA football championship, which Alan's going to probably talk about most because he's a big Alabama football fan. Take it away.
All right. So this is exactly what I predicted. Alabama was going to blow out anyone, regardless of who it was, in the national championship game. And I honestly kind of just felt bad for Ohio State. They didn't look like they belonged on the same field with Alabama for the most part. Like Alabama's defense was incredible. Like Ohio State tried to do stuff and it was just like didn't work. Like their run game was non-existent. Christian Barmore had an excellent game for Alabama. They were talking about him on the broadcasting. The broadcast people were talking about him, and it was a fourth down, and he looped under the guard and got the tackle for loss, basically ending Ohio State's chances. I think we'd be silly to not talk about how Devontae Smith broke like the receiving record for the national championship at halftime and got injured right after halftime, so he didn't come back in. Justin Fields, I actually thought looked pretty good. He was pretty good in the pocket. Some of his throws were pretty bad, like they were pretty wobbly. But I don't know how much of that is up to not being fully healthy. But Alabama's offense, even when Mac Jones got hurt, didn't take like a step down. I just think Ohio State's defense, for as good as their defensive line was, it just they didn't really touch Alabama. Jalen Waddle tried to play, looked pretty hard to watch.
Yeah, he was limping off the field right after his like first catch or whatnot.
But what I heard is like he's fully back to health. Like he can reach all them, but I think they were saying it's just painful for him to do it. Like he's able. Like I don't think there was any future like injury risk because of it. I think it was just pain.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of watched the highlights of the game this morning, and I mean, it just looked like kind of like what you said, like Ohio State just never really had that big push. They didn't really have that big, stop of Alabama's defense and then score on their next offensive drive. Also, I think Justin Fields was a little bit hurting as well. I don't think he was fully up to health, or he was healthy fully in that aspect. And I think that but I do think this is going to be a rivalry, Alabama versus Ohio State, only because of the drafting class that they had. Alabama's number 1 and Ohio State's number 2. So all I'm saying is I guarantee you this is going to be the next rivalry instead of Alabama versus Clemson or Alabama versus LSU, because especially a lot of
who's Ohio State's quarterback going to be though? I think that's the only thing I would worry.
They got the number 1 draft class in 2022.
2022?
Or is it 2021?
I'm looking it up.
He's out of Texas. He just won like the semifinal national game for Texas. But yeah, I mean it's going to be.
They just signed a 5-star quarterback.
Yeah, I think
from Pennsylvania, from Philly.
Oh, well, all that I do know is that this is going to become a rivalry, because I think, I guarantee you Alabama's going to have a hefty amount of guys coming out of, going into the NFL draft. But it's definitely going to be interesting, very, very interesting to see. But I think, Alan, I just want to pitch this into you. Do you see Devontae Smith going number 2?
No,
for the Jets.
I don't know why Ben keeps on asking this. I do not think it happens. Like Devontae Smith is awesome, but I think the Jets need to take a quarterback. And like for as valuable as a quarterback is, I don't think you take anyone before him.
Fair enough, but
he might be the first receiver taken, and I think that's probably in the top 10. I think there's a huge chance you get like 3 receivers in the top 10. And in previous years, we haven't seen. We'll have waited to like the 25th pick for the first receiver to be taken. So that'd be awesome if there's like 3 in the top 10.
I mean, I think it will be interesting because obviously Jaguars are probably going to take Trevor Lawrence. Jets are probably going to take Justin Fields, I would assume, maybe Zach Wilson, maybe Trey Lance, even though Allen for some reason loves this dude. But if you really think about it, it could be Miami. And Miami can either pick up the Pensay Oswell.
Just say Sewell. Yeah.
And then the Atlanta Falcons, who if they get Devontae Smith, that just helps their wide receiving core even more.
Alabama factory there.
And then the Bengals I don't think they should, if they do pick a wide receiver, I mean, cool, but they need offensive line help if they want to help Joe Burrow in any aspect. And then you got the Eagles, who we all know the Eagles for the past like 5 years, I'd say, need better wide receivers. So, I mean, it could be, I'd want to say he's probably going to go top 5, But the Jets could pull a wild card and get him. And then I think you see Justin Fields probably drop all the way down to either Philly or Detroit, maybe Carolina, if they
Yeah,
can get him.
I think it depends on what really. I think it's like team fit. Like I think I wouldn't be too mad if like the Dolphins, for instance, took Devontae Smith that high, but I think it's more what the teams think they need more, because like the Falcons might decide they need a corner more, like their defense is bad or something. Because like I think Devontae Smith is a top 5 prospect. I think when more of the sports to settle off, like when NFL season's over, we might do some mock drafts and you might see from us him going higher. But I think I think there's a lot can go. Like if Devontae Smith, I don't think people expect him to run like Henry Ruggs speed, but
Mm-hmm.
I think especially with the combine not possibly not happening, you could see the combine meaning less and less. And so you might just have to take what you saw on the field. And Devontae Smith was the best player in college football. So I could see him going as high as 2, like you say, but I don't see him dropping much past like 7.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think it's just only going to be a little bit trickier because I mean, you can look at Jacksonville. Obviously, we know Jacksonville and Jets are, unless again like they pull a wild card, they're most likely going to choose a quarterback. And then you got Miami, who I think should maybe help out their wide receiving core. So that's the only place I could really see Devontae Smith going. And then you got Atlanta, who, I mean, who knows what Atlanta's going to want because, I would think that they would want defense, but who knows? The Bengals need line help. The Eagles just need a whole new cap space help. And then the Detroit Lions just need a little bit of everything. So that's the top 7 draft picks. So, I mean, it's really who wants or whatever that team needs and who they like, just like in the combine. Like, what if some wide receiver out of, I don't know, some random college that runs a 4.4 or something. Wait, no, that's not that fast. Like a 4.2 or something like that, just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That'd be definitely something. So yeah, I think definitely some of these teams have to look at who they're going to be drafting. But just so everybody knows, the NFL draft, what it's going to be looking like: Jaguars number 1, Jets 2, Dolphins 3, Falcons 4, Bengals 5, Eagles 6, Lions 7, Panthers 8, Broncos 9, Cowboys 10, Giants 11, 49ers 12, Chargers 13, Vikings 14, Patriots 15, Cardinals 16, Raiders 17, Miami again 18, Washington 19, Bears 20, Colts 21, Titans 22, Jets 23 again, Steelers 24, Jacksonville again 25, Browns 26, Buccaneers 27, Ravens 28, Saints 29, Bills 30, Packers 31, Chiefs 32.
I believe 25 through 32 is still up in the air because of playoffs, but everything else is settled.
Yeah, so I mean, that's pretty much all that I really have for today's show. I mean, it's definitely going to be an interesting week. Oh, before we end the show, Alan, I want your predictions on the NFL playoffs right now because it is the divisional round. So,
For like, you want my predictions for this weekend or like just in general, like the Super Bowl?
Yeah, let's go this weekend. Okay.
All right, so I will take the Bills over the Ravens, the Chiefs over the Browns, Rams over the Packers, and I'll take the Bucks over the Saints. I think the closest game will be the Ravens and Bills. Yeah, what are your predictions there, Ben?
I got Chiefs over Browns, Bills over Ravens, Saints over Buccaneers. And the only reason why I'm saying Packers over Rams only because the Rams have so many injuries right now. Aaron Donald is out with his rib injury. Also, their wide receiving core, I think Cooper Kupp is also pretty beaten up on his injury. And obviously, They don't have John Wolford, and I think Jared Goff's a little bit shaky on that because he had thumb surgery. So I'm gonna take the Packers only because the Packers are gonna be healthy. They're gonna be in Lambeau, but there's no snow. But they're still gonna be in Lambeau, and I think that the Packers will end up being the Rams. And I think after that, probably Packers over Saints, and then Chiefs over Bills. Chiefs win it all.
Like, I think these games are all going to be fantastic. So I'm not certain about basically any of the games except the Chiefs. I think all of the games are going to be great otherwise. But if I had to go for Super Bowl, I know this kind of contradicts what I say, but I'm going to change Packers and Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I think that would be awesome too. If we got the Chiefs and the Packers, Mahomes versus Aaron Rodgers, I think would be the best way to end it.
The battle for the State Farm. The battle for the State Farm commercial. But yeah, so it's definitely going to be an interesting 3 weeks, 4 weeks, because the Super Bowl takes 2 weeks, right? They get 2 weeks preparation, something like that. But anyway, that is pretty much nobody cares about the Pro Bowl, Alan. Nobody watches the Pro Bowl.
I do. I watch the Pro Bowl. I don't know why, but
you watch the Pro Bowl.
I'll watch it for Chase Young this year.
In like 1 million. Okay, fair. Is there a Pro Bowl? Even with COVID?
I think they're trying to do some weird Madden thing. So probably not going to watch it this year. But yeah, I think they're trying to do. I think they're trying to have like all 32, like all players trying to like do some. It's weird. I don't know. We'll see how it.
Anyway, that has been the lunch table, ladies and gentlemen. Please hit that subscribe with the bell with notifications. Hit that like button. Leave a comment down below. Let us know your opinions on the NFL playoffs and anything else you would like us to try and pitch in any other sports or whatnot. This has been the lunch table. Signing out.